All right, there, I see it now. Perfect. Okay. Well, again, welcome. Again, my name to the second community meeting for Paula Titus Park. My name is Nathan Frazee. I'm the project manager from the Boston Parks and Recreation Department that's overseeing this. A few housekeeping items. Next. So a few housekeeping items. As I just mentioned, tonight's meeting is being recorded and will be available on the project website within a week. So please be sure to share that with any neighbors that were interested and were unable to attend. During the presentation portion, we're going to ask that you keep your video and mic off. However, during the discussion portion period, in an effort to make this as simulated as an in-person meeting as possible, and if you're comfortable, we ask you to turn your video back on. So with that being said, right now, can everybody just make sure their microphones are muted? Perfect. Next. So with that being said, we want to ensure the conversation is a pleasant experience for all and that the community members are comfortable sharing comments, questions, and feedback. So please be respectful and mindful of each other's time as we only have an hour and a half together tonight. Let's keep the questions and comments project specific and on point. And please wait for all attendees to have an opportunity to ask a question or provide a comment before doing a second question. I'm also providing my contact here. So if there's any desire for additional conversation or any other issues, you certainly can reach out directly to me. Next. So we have a couple Zoom tips here. As I mentioned, participants, if you're comfortable to turn cameras and microphones on during the discussion portion, that is simply done by clicking the microphone and camera. Right now, it should have a red asterisk or a red slash through it. But when we get to that discussion portion, you can click those on. When in an effort to keep it orderly when we're answering questions, there is a little hand icon and you can click that and that will alert one of the hosts or moderators that you are wanting to ask a question. Additionally, we have a chat feature that is on. So if you can see where the more options are, you can pull up the chat feature and you can be adding items into the chat throughout the meeting. But we're gonna, for the most part, try and handle questions and comments at the end. Next. Let me see here. So tonight's agenda, it's going to include an introduction of the design team, project overview, the presentation of design concepts, and then we're going to have a listening and discussion to go over those concepts, and we'll have closing remarks in the next steps. Next. So as I said, my name is Nathan Frazee. I am the project manager from the Parks Department overseeing the improvements to Paula Titus Park. Christine is not able to join us this evening, but her contact information is on the screen. She's an excellent contact for any current issues or friends group development. Our design team tonight is CBA Landscape Architects. From their office, we have Kayla Bachman and Jocelyn Wolf. I also have Office of Neighborhood Services rep, as information is on the screen. That's FISA. So any other neighborhood issues that aren't park specific, you can certainly feel free to reach out to them. And before we move on, I just want to acknowledge that yesterday was Women's International Day. And as a Parks Department, we are highlighting influential women in their contribution to parks throughout the city. So in the chat, we're going to be adding a link to some of those highlighted stories. But I also, because this park is named after Paula Titus and she was an influential member in the community, I want Charlie to just take a minute and provide a little bit on Paula's legacy in the neighborhood in the city. Charlie, are you unmuted here?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Okay.
Although you just turned your camera off, I'm not sure if you meant to do that.
Well, I've lost you guys. Okay.
No worries. If you want to do it with just the audio, that's fine, Charlie.
Okay. Wow, what happened here? I'm just. Hello?
You're still there.
We can hear you.
Okay, well, I can't get my camera on, but I'll get it in a minute. Listen, I just want to take a minute to thank Nathan and Christine from Parks and Rec and Jocelyn and Kayla. It's been a pleasure working with you guys so far, and I appreciate the time and the effort that you're putting in to try and get this park right. I know Paula will be very, very pleased. It's a park for our neighborhood. It's passive. And Paula was, she loved this neighborhood, and she was living here for over 40 years. She was very concerned as the neighborhood changed to make sure, or to try and encourage people coming into the neighborhood to be friendly, to be neighborly, to have a spirit of camaraderie where possible. You know, little things like say hi when you walk by and those kinds of things. She really wanted it to be a true neighborhood, and actually got upset when she didn't feel that that was the case. So I expect that in the spirit that she lived and participated in this neighborhood, and those of you who were at the first meeting in the park got a sense of what the neighbors thought about Paula. And I hope that that is the legacy that will continue. A bright, friendly, lovable woman who loved this neighborhood.
Wonderful. And I think that really can, hopefully we can speak to that tonight through the design process and help develop a park that lasts for generations to come. Thank you, Charlie, for that. Next.
Thank you. Sorry about my camera.
No worries, we'll get there. So this slide here goes over the project budget and the schedule. Current funding is $35,000, and that's funded through the Community Preservation Act. The intent of that money and is to work with CBA to get the project to a construction document point where our department can then look to get construction money to actually get this built. So we are looking to wrap up that process, the community engagement process this spring, develop the construction documents throughout the summer, and seek funding starting this fall. Next. This was shown in our first meeting. This is just showing what the various elements that go into park design within our department. So that includes community input, such as tonight, safety regulations and guidelines, City of Boston priorities, and parks and recreation goals. Next. During the project planning, as a city, we prioritize expanding park access, addressing equity and climate resiliency, promoting healthy and building strong communities. Next. The Parks Department goals are specific but also overlap with the city priorities and include the creation of parks which are accessible and available to all, provide diverse and balanced programming, promote meaningful and inclusive community engagement, create adaptive and resilient landscapes, and promote connection within the neighborhood in the broader community. Next. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Kayla to present a recap of our first meeting and present some design concepts. I want to note that these concepts are not set in stone. So if there's certain elements you like from each, certainly note that for us. And Kayla's team will work to take all of the feedback we get tonight on the concepts and develop a preferred plan that we're going to come back to the community and present to make sure we're heading in the right direction. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kayla. So please take it away.
Hi, everybody. I see some names and faces from the last meeting, so that's great to have some returning members. As Nate said, I'm just going to pass through this the first meeting information quickly so that we can get to kind of the exciting part of the design here. But just to give you an idea of where the park is in terms of the context. So we've got the Southwest Corridor over here in the orange line. This small circle here shows open space within a 5 to 10 minute walk, and then this half-mile radius around shows a 10 to 15 minute walk. So there are a lot of there are a lot of parks in this neighborhood, and actually a lot of community gardens as well, one of which is directly across the street. And there's really a diverse range of recreation options that are nearby. So we want this park, Paula Titus Park, to complement the rest of those uses and supplement. This is a kind of a zoomed in view of that park context, showing the main streets, the smaller streets, some of these other open spaces that are nearby, the Memorial Garden, Fort Hill Tower, and Highland Park, and you know, a few other buildings and institutions. So this is the site existing now. It's pretty much a large open lawn. It slopes down to one corner, and there are a few trees there that we'd like to preserve. There are condominiums on either side of the park, community garden across the street, and then private homes sort of along on the other side of Fort Ave. So here's some views from inside the park. This is towards Beach Glen, which is if you're looking at the park, this is to your left. And then the Fort Hill condos are on your right if you're in the park. So there you go, that right side view. And then along the fence and along the street, you have these, some neighbors said they thought they were apple trees. We're going with apple trees for now, but they may be cherries or a mix of something. We're not 100% sure. Some shrubs, the hedge that's kind of along the side of the driveway here, and there's this elm tree that's surviving right up here. Native apple and pear trees, says a commenter. Thank you. Perfect. Oops. No, too many. All right, so we're showing the perimeter fence at this park. There are two entrances right now. There's a public flush entrance at the sidewalk at the corner of the site, and a small gate. Oh, sorry, did I say fence? I meant entrance. And there's another gate on this side. Roxbury russet apples and Bartlett pears. Ooh, good for cider, I'm sure. This is a quick little slope analysis. So the site is pretty flat up on this side, and then it slopes more steeply on this edge over here, and in this corner particularly. And just to get an idea of what the sun patterns are like here, we have spring, summer, fall, and winter. The gist of that is that in the summer, you're going to have the sun staying really high and staying in the sky longer than normal, or I guess longer than the rest of the year. And in the winter, you have a really short sun path staying at a lower angle in the sky. And spring and fall are pretty similar to each other. So we had a really nice conversation at the first meeting on January 19th. We received a lot of feedback, a lot of great comments, and kind of the main defining objectives that we heard were to keep some flexible open space in this park, to really have a wow factor, whether people are visiting from the neighborhood or visiting from out of town, to include a memorial feature or even multiple features of some kind for Paula Titus, and to potentially keep a space where a public sculpture could be installed. Public art in Boston is done through the Art Commission, so there's a separate approval process by which that happens. That can't happen as part of this park project, but we can certainly plan for a space where that could be possible in the future. We also heard that there's a desire to have some playground equipment here for younger kids, toddlers ages 2 to 5. Play equipment is typically divided into ages 2 to 5 and 5 to 12. Those are the kind of manufacturer ranges, although it tends to sort of separate along different lines of who's using what equipment is definitely more subjective than those rigid age lines. And there was a request for nature theme play or things that involved a lot of balancing or more subtle equipment rather than having like a big giant structure in the park. It's not a big park, so a lot of folks said, you know, the focus should be on the open space rather than having, you know, a really big playground, especially considering that there are a lot of playgrounds nearby as well. And the last thing that was really requested was site furniture for people to gather and interact with each other, really keeping in the spirit of having that neighborhood feeling like Charlie talked about, that Paula loved so much, and to have that seating be comfortable and inclusive. So making sure that people with mobility issues or that are pushing strollers, or that everyone can use that seating in the park and be comfortable using it. So we have, now for the fun parts where we show, we have 3 schematic design plans to show today. Like Nate said, these are all, think of them conceptually, nothing is set in stone here. So often when we do these meetings where we show different options, we have people say, I really like this element from A, this part of B, and this part of C. And then our job as designers is to make those elements come together cohesively for the final design of the park. So we like all 3 options, but there are, you know, bits and pieces that we try to show different opportunities to use the site in different ways. So I'll start with option A, and I think for each one I'll do kind of a little walkthrough. This is that flush entrance that's existing, which I think probably people will be most familiar with entering the park from there. And this is Fort Ave along the top, so you'd be coming in from this direction. In this option, we're showing a pretty rectilinear design. We have this circuit path that goes around sort of the main pathway. And then a few people asked for or suggested having kind of a grove of trees somewhere in the park with a path that went through. So we have this little secondary loop that dives up, and we thought that could be kind of a memorial walk, or you know, there's an opportunity to nestle in some outdoor musical instruments in this space. So you walk, you can you play the instruments, but also it's sort of a shaded little grove that you can sit in and use as a passive space. We're showing a pretty small play space here that's all fenced in. We're adding some shade trees so that can be a little less exposed in the summertime. And there's this central kind of, it's a very small plaza, I'd say, where it could be open circulation space. So if you did have an event where you wanted to set up tables or temporary furniture, you could use that space, but it's also a potential location for a public sculpture that could go in at a later time. In this corner of the space, we have a shade pergola, or a shade structure. People call them different things, but this would be, it wouldn't be a solid roof, but it would be something that would have louvers or bars that would give you some shade during the day. And something we heard at the last meeting was that, you know, having places to sit was important, tables and chairs, but a few people really like the idea of having game tables. So we've shown a couple of those in this scheme as well. Oh, and I should have talked about this in the beginning, but at the entrances, we're showing 2 entrances at each park. Or in each option. That's something that BPRD really strives for. So we have this flush entrance here, and then we're showing a second entrance that steps up from the sidewalk, and it would be aligned with the community garden across the street. So kind of creating a little bit more of a connection there between those 2 spaces was something we wanted to try out in one of the options. Just a note here about when we talk about this sidewalk entrance being flush. Normally the goal for all our public parks is to have accessible entrances and spaces. Let's see. And because this Fort Ave is on a hill, right? So you actually have The slope from this on the sidewalk is not compliant with the ADA regulations. It's at like a 7.8% slope or something like that, whereas an unramped walkway should be under 5. So you can't get a cross slope, which is less than 2% coming into this park without kind of changing the sidewalk, and it triggers a whole lot of regulations. So we have to kind of do the best that we can with what we have, which is why we're calling it flush instead of accessible. And we have a couple of images to illustrate these concepts that we showed in the plan. There's some benches along the pathway. They could be just black or they could be brightly colored. That's something that's partially up to the parks maintenance department, but usually black is the standard. You know, we have sort of a little walking path with some trees. These are larger than they would be than when they were planted, but eventually they would get to a nice size. And then we're showing kind of a flexible lawn with some benches and shade trees here. All right. We have some example images of furniture, metal ribbon benches, these game tables. These would probably be metal, although we're showing a wood photo. This is a metal pergola, and that's prefabricated. So that's what I was talking about, having those bars across the top that creates some shade underneath. Although here the sun is pretty high, so you can see the shade kind of in the bottom of the photo a little bit, but it got cut off. And then another thing that people requested was some lighting at this park. Because it's so close to the houses nearby, we wouldn't be doing any big floodlights or anything like that. We'd really want to keep those lights really low. And a nice option for public spaces is bollard lights. They can have different shapes. They're usually about, give or take, 6 inches in diameter, and the light stays below like waist level. So at most they're something like 3 feet high. And here we're showing a couple examples of the play equipment. So we're, you know, in this option, we showed it a footprint of a little playhouse. You know, has a little store here that encourages that kind of imaginative play for really young children. Maybe there's a little table and stumps. This sort of natural wood style was something that a lot of people at the last meeting were interested in. And then here's an example of those musical instruments. So it's something that's set on posts. They can be a xylophone like this. There are drums, there are chimes. And if that's something the community wants to pursue, we can talk more kind of in the discussion part of what kinds of thing people would like to see there. Oh, and a note about those instruments that anything with chimes is pentatonically tuned. So they pretty much always sound good, no matter whether it's somebody banging on them with a shoe or if you run by with a stick. They're not like a traditional instrument where you have to have a skill to play it. You can still get songs out of them, but it's not, and they're not very loud in the landscape either. So moving on, we have option B, and here we took a little bit more of a curvilinear approach. So kind of this big sweeping path that comes through the park. And we've moved that second entrance down to this bottom corner. So if you're walking up this hill, this would be the route that you'd probably take. And in this corner, we were able to show, it's not a ramp because it doesn't have handrails, but it's a sloped walkway that's flush to the sidewalk again and would get you up to the park without needing to go up any steps. And oh, something I forgot to mention in that first one was that the play area was fenced in. And here we have really the whole park is fenced in. So it's kind of a larger space, but there is still enclosure, especially for those who have little kids that might run off. It's not a huge space. So, you know, small child can get pretty quickly to the street if you're someone looks away for a second. So that's something that Boston Parks always tries to do with their parks, but especially where there's equipment for younger children. All right, so we talked about that big sweeping pathway that passes through. We are showing another shade pergola here, and this is curved, obviously. We're showing some furniture under here. It could be tables, it could be game, larger tables, it could be game tables. We're showing some benches and game tables here, but that's pretty diagrammatic at this point. And trying to read the chats, but also talk, which is not working out as well for me as it could. I'll keep trying to multitask, but forgive me if I lose my train of thought. All right, so we talked about the pergola, the furniture, and here we're showing this is the smallest play area, I think, that we're showing in the 3 options. It's kind of this wedge, and we thought it would be interesting to explore maybe an obstacle course style of play. So we've seen a lot of increased interest in this, especially with like that Ninja Warrior show. A lot of kids are really into that. And this is something that can be really versatile for younger kids, but also for older kids. So you can have balance beams, you can have stumps that you walk on, and different, adults can use it too, but different age levels can use that equipment differently. So it can be very versatile. And like the other option, we are showing more shade trees sort of along this side so that we can get a little more shade in that play area, and additional trees throughout the park as well. And as far as our flush entrance goes here, we are showing an entrance arch, and we have some photos of that at the end of the presentation. It's usually a metal arch piece that's decorative and is used to kind of demarcate that entrance to the site. So it's something that it's an opportunity to have kind of add another decorative element to the park and provide that sense of entry. And lastly, we have a small seating area over here. We are including kind of memorial elements in each option. So here we kind of have a plaque, or maybe it would be something mounted to a granite block of some kind. The details of the memorial feature for Paula are going to be worked out at a later date, but we've allotted for something of that kind in each of the plans. All right. And so here are some of those example photos to show the elements in that option B. So we have a curved pergola. It may not be something that's cantilevered like this, that is cantilevers when you have a post and then a beam that sticks out without having a second post to support it. We may need to have a post on the other side depending on how big it is, but we want to show something that shows that curved style. We can do furniture, typically for BPRD, it's metal furniture, but there's a lot of different styles and options where you can have something that's a little more contemporary, something that's a little more traditional, and we wanted to show a few different styles in this presentation. Again, here we have that central lawn concept. It can be used for pickup ball games, picnics, all the regular stuff that you'd use a lawn for. And here we're showing a different style of light bollard that, we haven't shown them in the plans at this point, but they could be kind of situated in key places throughout the space. And another point about lighting is that some people worry that lighting will attract people to a space, but it can also be a deterrent for undesirable activity, because then people can see what you're doing. So if there's a darker area of the park that a street light doesn't quite hit, we can try to add lights there so that it's something that the neighbors can see. So if there is something going on, it's not, hidden away. And here we're showing some round tables with seats. These do not have backs, but they are available with backs, which I think is more comfortable and a little more usable for folks that maybe don't have the trunk strength to sit up straight, or, I mean, honestly, they're more comfortable. That's really, I think, the guiding point there. Okay. And here's some of that natural wood style and obstacle course style equipment. So we also want to show this as an example of, these are not wood, but they're kind of sculptural features that are along a path. So we thought that little wedge of space can hold, you know, a few play elements, but it's not necessarily a play structure. So you have some balance play, you have these kind of rope bridges and things like that, and little stump things that you can play on. All right, and option C. Am I talking too quickly? This feels like it's going by really fast. I hope people have a chance to absorb. We will have all three plans up at the end, so we'll be able to, they'll be a little small, so if you're looking on your phone, it might be a little tough, but you'll kind of be able to see all three and look at them together at the same time. No, thanks, Hillary. All right, so option C, we have again those two entrances. And this is kind of a more angled version. So we've got our flush entrance here coming into a bigger plaza space. There is a kind of smaller pergola in this option with some furniture both beneath and outside of that. And again, we have a space for sculpture potentially in the future, an entrance arch up here at this entrance, and some benches along the patio space here. So again, these could slide up or down, but they're placeholders for now. And here we're kind of dividing this space into almost providing a second room here. So we've got our larger gathering space here, like if you're having a barbecue or a party or something like that, you could use this entire space and maybe set up additional tables for a block party or an event like that. Whereas this is kind of a more ancillary intimate space. We're showing game tables here, but it could be any kind of furniture. And the second entrance for this option does have sets of steps. So in this option, we would be preserving the hillside that's at the corner here, but we'd have a path that would cut through up to sort of the main flat area of the park, and have some steps that come sort of in sets of two that you would make your way up. And last but not least, this is the largest play area of the three options that we have. So we've got, here we decide to play with topography a little bit. So the other two are flatter, and they would have retaining walls ranging in height to sort of frame and control the grading in that space so that they're pretty flat. In this option, we wanted to show something that shows some hillside play. So we have some photos of that too for everybody to see, but we'd have sort of a flat plane up at this entrance here, and kind of down below here so that you could, anyone with mobility issues could access both of those spaces and kind of navigate as they're able through the sloped areas. But this would kind of be a little hill here we would use a poured in place rubber surfacing, which is standard for Boston parks. So we're showing a little hill slide here, some little steps that would be set in that hill, and kind of climbing elements that you could use, as well as some independent play items in here. And here we've got some, again, more large shade trees, kind of bring a little more scale to this site and a little more protection from the sun. And I think that I think I neglected to mention this in the other plans, but we are showing an entrance to this private lawn space that belongs to the condominiums on this side, and a gate. So currently there is a gate there that connects to that side, and we're keeping that connection to that space. All right. So we've got, again, a couple more furniture items or options. We have some of these sort of swoopy picnic tables that we could use. Again, some more contemporary benches. And this photo, I think, shows kind of the idea that we might have with some of these plaza spaces having edging or and a granite seat wall here. So something that might be similar to this look here. We could look at, so this is again another style of pergola, and we could look at perhaps doing a fun color, maybe Paula's favorite color, something like that. If not for the whole thing, then maybe for the top part of the structure where it would be more protected. I know that Boston Parks typically likes to keep a lot of furniture black because it is easier to kind of maintain if it gets scuffed or if, you know, it gets vandalized or something like that. But the top, I think, may have more flexibility in our color selection. And again, here's another style of light bollard. I realize now that we're showing all round bollards, and they do also come in a couple of square options. But I think we'd probably choose that based on what the rest of the furniture really looks like. And we try to consolidate manufacturers so that when the park is being built, it's, you know, the contractor is not ordering, you know, lights from here, tables from here, chairs from here, benches from here. You know, we try to keep it to a couple of manufacturers. So they're not running around and it can get expensive administratively. Anyway, I digress. We have some, so this illustrates really well. This is Smith Playground in Alston. Shout out to Kathy, she's still here. And they've got this really fun hillside slide, those climbers that I talked about. Here's kind of another smaller option of that with a smaller hill. And they've incorporated some of these larger climbers. I'm not sure we'd have space for something like that. It would depend. We'd have to look at that more carefully if this is the option people like. But you know, again, we can include some of these little spring riders or multi-child platforms that move around and provide different types of movement and play opportunities. And we've got a couple of slides here with, might just be one, with sort of general options that could be applied for any of these. So here are those entrance arch features that we talked about. I mean, we've done an arch. This is at Monsignor Reynolds Playground in the South End. And we've also done columns that are open. So it's, you know, there's a lot of opportunity there to do something that works with, you know, the surrounding architecture and character of the space that the park, the neighborhood the park is in. This is at Morse Kelly Playground in Somerville. And then, you know, we would have new fencing at this park that CBA has done this at a lot of our park projects. We have these ornamental cutouts that are attached to the fence. This is at a playground, so I don't know that we'd do something, this is a little more whimsical, but we can do something that's a little more subdued and perhaps more, what's the word I'm thinking of? Sophisticated maybe, but something that speaks a little bit more to, again, the character of the neighborhood, or maybe there's something that's a motif that could be particularly relevant to Paula's legacy. Oops, too fast. All right. And then at the last meeting, we heard that people were not super interested in having concrete or asphalt walkways. And we wanted to show kind of a few opportunities. Usually concrete and asphalt are going to be the most cost-effective paving materials for parks like this. Are we on time? Okay, good. But there are ways to dress it up. So here on this picture on the left, we're showing some different bands of colored concrete. So you've got sort of darker, medium, and light grays. You can also do a decorative banding around the edge, like this kind of brick band that is next to the granite, but you still have the bulk of your paving being concrete. And then there's also a lot of concrete paver options. So you can have all different shapes and patterns. This one combines square pavers and herringbone bands kind of throughout. This photo shows a herringbone patterned pathway, and these pavers are actually permeable, so they let water all the way through to percolate into the soil. This particular paver, so usually with permeable pavers, you're percolating water through the cracks in between the pavers, but this one, the paver itself is permeable, so you can grab like a glass of water and dump it on top and it absorbs it throughout. And then there's, I guess it's a little hard to see here, but there are more linear pavers as well. So instead of being a square or like a regular rectangle shape, you can have some that are really long, say a foot to 15 inches, but still pretty narrow and kind of have this more modern look. So with that, I'll open it up to discussion, and we do have that last slide. I'll page to the last slide with the 3 plans so people can take a look at those while we're speaking. But I'll let Nate go through our little Zoom tips again.
Great. Thanks, Kayla. So now this portion, we're going to open up the meeting to get your all's input. I just want to go over the Zoom tips again real quick here. Again, to turn your microphone or your camera on, it's clicking the item so that the red swoosh goes away. The little blue hand, I think it's blue, if you guys can click that, and I'll do my best to call on everybody in the order that I see them. I'm going to have Kayla's team put the 3 concepts up on the slot, up on the screen. And so for at least the first round of questions, just because I imagine a lot of the comments are going to actually be referencing these, it may be helpful to be able to see them. After we get through a question from everybody or a comment from everybody, then we'll take it down and we can kind of simulate more of a in-person meeting. So with that being said, I'm going to see if I see some hands raised. I see.
And yeah, I think I'll keep the chat up, and we can use the chat for questions too.
Perfect. I see Hillary has raised her hand. So Hillary, you can unmute yourself. There we go, Hillary. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for really an amazing presentation. Apologies for not making the last meeting. Was wondering about these options are amazing. You guys know all the the history and science of why they can happen this way. I was wondering how much these options are going to be influenced by budget, and whether or not, I mean, obviously and I'm representing the Beach Glen crew that has been taking care of the space for the last couple of decades. In terms of, reducing the green footprint, the need for water or quick maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. So if you could just answer about, budgets, and secondly, about maintenance, I'd love to hear what your big thoughts are. Thank you so much. I'll sign off, and you can answer everybody else.
Thank you, Hillary. I'll let Nate take this question because he's the budget
Sure.
guy.
So again, we don't have any currently allocated money for construction. So Kayla and her team, although these concepts are different in design, they're all relatively within the same kind of budget scope that we've been looking at. So we feel pretty comfortable that depending on which one the community is most comfortable with, that's the budget we're comfortable with as well, and we'll start to seek funding sources for that. So I don't think that's going to be a constraint on that. Obviously, within any project, there is a balance of budget and making sure, between the level of materials versus the design intent. So I know Kayla showed several paving options. You know, what we can do is balance any budgetary constraints that we may get into with the types of materials that we end up going with. But the design intent is what we're going to strive to make sure we implement. In regards to maintenance, one of the things we presented in the first meeting is the more ornamental plantings that we tend to do. We typically rely on friends groups to augment our maintenance department's ability to maintain those areas. So right now, what we've shown, there still is a lot of lawn space here. The Parks Department can maintain and make sure that is cut on a regular basis throughout the summers. You know, our arbor team, we can make sure trees, you know, if there's any issues that we're taking care of those. But any of the areas that have more lush planting, that's something we would be looking for the Friends group to help and join with us on that. Does that answer? I think that hit the two items you were asking, right?
Yes, thank you very much.
Perfect. All right, I'm gonna look for another hand. I don't see any hands right now.
May I just a follow-up question with you? There is not currently a friends group of Paula Titus Park, or do you, when you say the friends group, which group are you referring to? Oh.
So you're right, there isn't a current one, but I believe during that first meeting, there was interest in people actually forming one that would be interested in that type of planting, but that would have to be established within our, I provided her contact earlier. Christine Brandeo is our Parks Department member that helps form friends groups.
Great. If you're providing information about, this is Hillary again, sorry. If you're providing information about the meeting, it'd be lovely to have your contact. I'm sure you were going to provide them anyway, especially for the friends group, for the naive among us who are
Sure.
trying to help figure this out. Thank you.
Yeah, great. And Suzette?
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking at your plans A, B, and C. And one thing you can't see here on this picture, you guys know when you're on the site, when you're on one side, you have us, just a giant green rectangle, an asphalt, right? And then on the other side, now we have just a new giant tan rectangle. So what we used to have was a tall row of trees, like you might have considered here in option A or option C. And it's really nice because we used to have trees and you'd see the trees. And now I just see those people going up and down their stairway and doing their dishes. And they just see me doing the same. Where before we used to have that buffer of trees. I understand why it had to be taken down. They were rotted in the trunks and, you know, it was a danger, but I would like something like that again. Aesthetically, option B is beautiful, but it doesn't give you the same buffering that got taken away. Do you know what I mean? The shape of option B.
And that's certainly, so adding more trees, I mean, if option B was something that a lot of folks were attracted to, that we can, there is space to accommodate more shade trees in that option.
Okay,
So,
great. Yeah, just because for us, we got used to looking at something for 20 years and then it was gone. And I mean, it's gone for a greater good. I know it's not permanent, but I would like something like that going again. And again, on the side that you have it in your schematic plans, that's where it was originally. And it, for the people looking up, it provided, you know, screening, and the people looking down, it provided screening. So along that side is where it does seem to be the most important, where you guys have it on your plans. So I'm glad. I just want to put that in there. Whatever option you guys choose, just a row of trees there for screening would be great.
Great feedback.
Okay.
Thank you. And Andre, I think I saw your hand up. So
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
perfect. Yes.
Well, first and foremost, thank you very much for taking on this project. These are three really impressive designs. I know we're not quite there yet, but I was just kind of curious if the design chosen will have any impact on the scheduling once the construction schedule is set.
No,
Yeah.
any of these should be, they're obviously all three are contingent on the construction funding.
Right.
But within all three elements, they have very similar materials. So from a construction standpoint, it shouldn't make that much of an impact.
Okay.
What do you have a preference on any of the designs? If you don't mind me putting you on the spot.
Oh, no worries. Option B is gorgeous. If I can echo that a little bit, option B has more trees in the design that you laid out, so that's really, really attractive. I know Kelly mentioned that can be added to B, but B and C look, I like both B and C right now.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Andre.
Sure.
And Charlie, I'm gonna call on you next.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to reiterate the point that Suzette made with the adding a strong buffer at the bottom of the park between the newer condos in the park. I think that is really, really important. And I'm glad that you're keeping the gate that leads to the Fort Hill, the Beach Glen condos in the back. I think that's important. That group has, as Hillary said, has been the main maintainers of the park or that land. It hasn't been a park yet, but of that piece of land, cutting grass and planting along the fence and that kind of stuff. And I would hope that there would be primary members of a fringe group that will form. So those are two elements that I think are real important.
Great. One thing we didn't show any formal pathway going back to that gate. The intent is to try and discourage people from coming into the park and then proceeding back into that space that don't have a given purpose back in there. So I'm just curious the input on that and the thoughts around that, if that seems like the right direction to go.
If I may, I really do think it is. I like that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And the other thing with that, because that is obviously private property behind us, that's something that we could potentially put a lock on to prevent that. Maybe maybe the residents there, again, if you are involved in a friends group and you're bringing in any type of maintenance equipment, wheelbarrows, things like that, that maybe we keep that locked and provide a key that the friends group can oversee that and make sure that that's a secured location. Okay, I got another hand up. I got to scroll to find it. Colin.
Hi everybody. Same, thank you everybody. This is exciting and great to be a part of. Very much appreciated. I live in the newer building to the west of the site. Watching Suzette and Hillary wash their dishes and waving occasionally. So I concur with the buffer of trees. I think that's important and welcome. I slightly gravitate toward option A. I think they all have strengths, though. I think they're all great. The only critique I would have of any of them is option B, the ramp on the west end. I know I have a design background, so I know what goes into getting a ramp built, and I would just say it seems like a lot of effort and builtness for not a lot of benefit. So I think that's really the only direct design.
It's a sloped walkway, not a ramp, but yes, I understand what you're saying. No handrails there. Oh, it's a sloped walkway, not a ramp, so it wouldn't have handrails. It would just be a walkway with curbing or a low wall. But yes, you're right. It is a lot of material. Something to consider.
And then relaying a thought from our condos from our last meeting. I think programmatically we're behind everything that's being explored. Our hope is that there aren't a lot of loud colors, though. You know, the natural materials, or if there are colors, it's, you know, selective. I think the major concern was looking down into a lot of loud color. Would seem, you know, sort of too much for relatively small space. And then just finally, we're hoping that something can be done to help retain the edge on the northwest portion. I think the property is where the current fence is and where the green ends on your plan. And that's a DND easement that goes back to the back lot down below. And so over time that had, you know, the organic material had pushed down. And so in the development of this property, there'd been some effort to retain a bit where we really needed to, but we'd love to see something further done up ahead. Whatever that looks like, just some additional effort to help retain that would be great.
Yeah, I think we would be looking at some kind of retainage. It wouldn't be like a big wall that's holding the whole slope, but something intermediary that's going to help mitigate that sliding that you were talking about. And vegetation to help, you know, keep the soil in place, whether it's trees or something kind of either a meadow mix or a low ground cover that would just hold that soil.
Great. Thanks, Colin. I appreciate that feedback. I don't see any more hands up, so I'm just going to start talking and you guys are going to bear with me and hopefully it'll prompt some discussion. So as Kayla mentioned throughout the presentation, we show the fence varying in locations throughout each of the schemes just to give a couple different options. I know during the first meeting there was quite a bit of discussion about dogs in the park and what that some of the issues that can arise from that. So one of the things from a design standpoint, the more fencing you get, the more likelihood it becomes inhabited by dogs or used as a dog park. So I'm just wondering what people's thoughts are in regards to fencing. I think concept A has the playground area fenced, has some archway detailing, but does not formally fence in with gates the entire park. Concept B has the ramp area is more open to the street, but the rest of it is actually a fenced in with gates. And then I believe I'm trying to see, C has kind of a hybrid of the two. So I'm just wondering what people's thoughts are on fencing and where they think that is best located. And Hillary, I see your hand up for that.
I'll actually try to do some video too. Sorry if I've got
Perfect.
the
Yep, no, that's working.
rings under my eyes. Yeah, so I guess the abutters are just concerned about the fence that has a gate between our space and this new space. So we just want to make sure, obviously, you know, we encourage community, but we also want to discourage folks wandering over on our side because it's a bit precipitous and could potentially hurt someone. So we want to make sure that safety is of the utmost. And yeah, you know what? Like we said, dogs are going to be there. So are people. How do we make it optional so that there isn't too much animosity, and we need to be able to speak to each other and have a community. So as much as we can encourage that sharedness is great, but we also discourage you know, anything that kind of diminishes safety to any person in our community. So we endorse making sure that there's a way that, I mean, there's not going to be a monitor at the park, you know, we have to kind of community monitor and things will happen. So we want to make sure that folks have options available and that they feel as safe as possible. The other thing is if there's a water element, you know, that one phase of one of the sidewalks recommended. I just want to make sure that that water element is, a safe issue as well. Over. And I'm sorry, and what I meant by that, addressing the fences, does it have to be fenced in? You know what I mean? Like if there's water available or, and then does it get turned off? Frozen pipes, etc. So I did want to make sure that that was addressed. Over.
Sure. At
Sorry,
this
when you
point,
say a water element, do you mean like a splash pad or like a or drinking fountain?
I would, you know what? I would love to have a drinking fountain that is available. Obviously, in the summer, it's so lovely to have some kind of splashing crazy water for everybody, not just screaming kids, but it is lovely, especially when it's really hot. But if there is something that has a pool of water, like a bird bath, which is lovely and might be a lovely tribute, that sitting water has to be dealt with. Whether it's approached by mosquitoes or, animals. Over.
Yeah. At this point, we haven't been showing water. It's certainly a drinking fountain of sort is something we could investigate and try and incorporate. In regards to like a bird bath type style, I don't know that we've been putting anything like that in our parks because of the issues that you have raised. I think if that is something that the Friends group wants to explore and potentially incorporate, that's obviously something that would be fleshed out through that relationship. Okay, is there, oh, I see a hand up. I think it's Linda. Linda, you can unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. I like them all, but I just had a couple of questions about some of the play area things. When you look at B, I see a gate at the top of the ramp.
Mhm.
Is that correct? Like the
Yes.
sloped ramp thing?
Mhm.
Is there a gate at every opening? When you see C, I see the stairs coming up. I don't know how many, I haven't done it in a long time, but there's nothing, I don't think, that moves as fast as a 3-year-old that's being chased or a 2-year-old. Is there a gate at that end of the park option when you look at C?
In C, so in C, we're not showing a gate at the street, but the play area is completely enclosed, and then there's a gate up here.
But
So
if you're
this,
in another part of there's nothing preventing a child from getting to the staircase.
no, and that's that to Nate's point, is that something that is a concern here, because I know that it is a street that does get, someone mentioned that traffic can go pretty quickly there. So
Right. Right.
if that entire, if all those entrances are open, that would, you could do it both ways, but it's sort of, what does the community want to see there?
Okay, and the entrance on, I'm just trying to figure out, A, there's a staircase on Fort Ave.
Mhm.
Does that have a gate at the top of it?
No,
It's
so
No, it does not.
yeah, so option A has a stairwell and then a open entrance to the street. The only fencing, there is fencing on the against the, I guess we're looking here, it would be the east, south, and west end, but that front end along the street is open. It's allowing the park to be much more open to the sidewalk.
I mean, we are showing a kind of a perimeter fence there.
Okay,
I
so
think
there's
it's a little
perimeter fence,
hidden by
but
the
the
trees, but no gates.
entrances themselves are not gated.
Mhm.
Option B has it's a perimeter fence with gated entrances. And then option C has again perimeter fences, but open to at the entrances with the playground area fenced in. So from a parent's perspective on concept A and C, you could bring your toddlers, have them secured in the playground area, and then anytime they're in the plaza or lawn space, you would have to obviously keep a close eye on them. Whereas option B, for the most part, you know, there's a closed gate wherever you are.
Yeah, I think the closed gate should probably be sort of massaged again in all of them. If you're gonna have small children, the traffic on that street, that curve is just, I don't like that curve at all. And to have someone have small children and have them be able to get to the street without some impediment kind of concerns me. I had another question. When you look at the pictures for the different play areas and the different options, what material is that you're showing? It looks like sand on the pictures. I'm just wondering, what is that?
Oh, on the ground?
Yes.
That's a poured in place rubber safety surfacing. So it's little granules of rubber that it's kind of spongy when you step on it. And the way that it's essentially a low maintenance alternative to mulch, because the way that it functions is you have like a thick layer of like shredded rubber underneath that has a cushioning effect. And then you have that top course that kind of keeps it all together. So it's to prevent injuries, you know, from falls from the play equipment or just running around. And unlike mulch, it doesn't have to be replenished or raked out or anything like that. So it just provides a uniform surface, and to that point is fully accessible. So you can, if you have a walker, you know, it could be a child or a caregiver making their way around that space. They can use that surface as well instead of mulch, where you have all these loose bits that are getting kicked around.
So it's a plastic surface across some other kind of material that makes it soft underneath.
It's a rubber with polymer in it, so it's glued together rubber. And
Actually,
it's
you know
two
what? I have
different.
a sample right here. So
Does it get hot in the summer?
It could, go ahead, Kayla.
Yeah, it does, but it depends on the color. So here we have this is a mix, and so you can see it's bendy, so it's flexible, and that's part of how you get the cushion from it. I wish I had a sample with the piece underneath that's like the cushy part, but yeah, it comes in a lot of different colors. I think for this site we would probably use like more subtle natural ground plane type colors, you know, brown or tan, to kind of help it blend into the site a little bit more. Right. And typically, yeah, the lighter colors will reflect a little bit more light, and the darker colors will absorb more and be a little warmer. So we try to keep the dark colors. So here, this looks black, but it's actually like a dark blue. Actually, maybe the camera shows it better than.
It's like a blue.
Yeah, so the dark colors, we usually do a blend of colors to help like hide dirt and scuffs and things like that. But
what is it actually made out of?
Rubber. So it's made of little, actually, let's see if I can pull one off. Yeah, it's made out of like little tiny pieces of rubber, and they're glued together. So it's almost like if you took, trying to think of a good analogy. Yeah, it's a bunch of little pieces stuck together.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And one thing, just being cognizant of, you know, temperature and shade in the playground area. That's all of these concepts have some form of shade trees on the western side of the playground. So that will, you know, especially in hot summers, break up some of that and provide shade on those playground areas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for those. I think Marjorie, I see your hand up.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Thanks for the presentation. I had a question of relative square feet in each of the different designs of the play area. So when we're looking at the schematic plans, do they all have relatively the same square footage in terms of the play area versus the green? Could you give those differences for each of them?
Sure. I don't think we have square footage calculations offhand, but I think A and B are fairly similar in the size. C does show a larger play area, so it's probably about, I'd say 1.8 to 2 times the square footage for space. The lawn areas are all fairly similar, but they are different shapes. So in C, you do have a large lawn area, but it's kind of in this wedge shape. So and because it's off to the side, it may not feel the same way when you're in the park. Or sorry, it's off to the side in the corner. It's not going to feel the same as a big lawn space in the middle like you have in A and B. As far as, yeah, A and B, the lawn space is pretty similar in size and also in location, but C may have the largest unbroken lawn space. Again, it's sort of in that wedge shape though, so it's going to be used a little bit differently. Does that answer your question?
Yes. And so all three, you're saying the actual lawn space is generally the same in terms of the amount?
Yeah, I think it's fairly similar sized. Yeah. I mean, probably a difference of a few hundred square feet in one direction or another, but not a significant difference.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a kind of a use that you had in mind for those lawn spaces, or were you just curious?
I guess I straddle both lives because I used that space a lot when my kids were little. I used the play structures a lot when our kids were little, and now my kids are a little bit older, and I like the lawn space for neighbors, adults to kind of sit and talk. So my brain is split in terms of, which way to go. But I just did see that play area was bigger in C. I just wanted to note that, but it's good that the actual green space is the same.
And I see somebody peeking over your shoulder with some interest in it.
Yeah, so these are
Any preference from them?
These are two of them use that play area a lot over the years. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. All right. Does anybody else have any comments associated with that? Sorry, my screen just changed drastically, so I lost where everybody is.
Nate, I would love to do like a little show of hands vote on like if you had to choose one, which one would you choose, kind of thing. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that option right now.
I think can we do? Can't everyone raise their hands? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I'm not a Zoom expert by any means, but.
Yeah, let's do kind of not necessarily a formal vote, but let's just get a little bit of input. So if you are leaning towards concept A, can you raise your hand now? And then I'm going to count how many hands I have raised. All right. And I'm going to, all right, I see one hand raised for that.
Oh, I saw two.
Oh, you see two?
Yeah.
Two. All right, now I gotta, there we go. Now I'm gonna lower your hands. And then for concept B, if you guys are leaning towards concept B, can you raise your hands? And I'm seeing one. Does that sound, what, two? We're gonna go with a 2-2-2 vote, aren't we? All right.
I feel like we should have said you could vote for more than one. I think.
True, you definitely can. All right, we're gonna lower hands for that. And now concept C. If you have a preference towards concept C, if you can raise your hand. All right, I see 3 hands. So I guess one of my thoughts on, now that we did that, we just being cognizant of the time that we have about 10 more minutes here. If you felt inclined to vote on that, I'm curious, what is the reason for that vote? Because again, if it's the geometrical shape of the park, obviously, that's a design intent. But if it is, the size of the lawn, the size of the playground, where the fencing is located, the type of spaces that it's creating, just wondering what people's thoughts are on that.
Hey, so I'll chime in. Hey,
Perfect.
Bellarant, neighbor on Fort Ave. I like the playground space being a little bit larger with option C. I think there are just more possibilities. I also like the fact that the lawn space is further from the street.
Okay.
In that design. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think with those little ones, kicking a ball or anything, even though that space is not a formal square, they can, they're definitely creative at how they use spaces. So I think that pushed away from the street is a good input. And then in regards to the play space, obviously, the types of play that we are showing, option C uses topography, so it's engaging, slopes and climbers and things like that. Whereas the other two options are a little bit more flat, standard playground dimensions. So that'll be a contributing factor as well. And I see one comment in the section, in the comments, is just that concept A has more privacy for the abutters as more trees are added. And as Kayla mentioned earlier in the presentation, that's certainly, I think all of these concepts allow for push and pull on that. So if there's another concept that you like and would just prefer more tree, that's something we could explore as well.
I am curious to hear what people think about incorporating musical instruments into the space. So the outdoor musical instruments are they're not considered play equipment, so they can be put on any surface. They don't need special safety surfacing or anything like that. So they can be incorporated into a plaza or other spaces, but typically it's something that we like to ask the neighborhood about because it's it makes noise without with input, of course, from people, but curious to hear people's thoughts on that.
Anybody's thoughts?
Or questions, honestly. Some people are like, I don't really know what that is. Like,
I was gonna say, Suzette, if you don't mind me calling on you as a direct abutter, what is your thoughts on potentially incorporating some music elements?
Music, it's such a loud neighborhood. Our bedrooms are right on the street now. I'm thinking of that boom, 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 cars going by every minute, the sirens from Longwood. So just the idea that you could actually hear the music, I don't know. You know what I mean? Because it's right on the street.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think sound also tends to just, because of the hill, it seems to vibrate. So if it's an irritating noise, it tends to vibrate up the hill. I don't know, but my bedroom's right on the street, so I could have a skewed view of
Sure.
that. But if you've seen up that hill, all of our bedrooms are right on the street.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Sure, and I think the type of music that we would be looking at, as Kayla showed in the presentation, is more of like a wind chime type
Yes.
music. It's not going to be, reverberating drums or deep bass or anything like that.
Yeah, no. So I don't have any strong feelings either way. I do want whatever is there. I do think a muted color scheme, a
Mhm.
lot of bright colors and themes. They get dated so quickly, and it looks so sad. Just a few years, it can look post-apocalyptic in the matter of 3 to 5 years. So just something muted and natural looking, whatever that might be.
Okay. And I see, I think Hillary commented in there that she is in favor of, that she likes the idea of music back there, anything to get the kids in there. So that's a great feedback.
Yeah, it sounds like this street noise might kind of distract from it. That, I mean, you would hear it when you were right in front of it, but then it would get sort of lost in the shuffle
Yeah, yeah.
as it disperses.
All right. Well, is there any last minute comments, questions, or concerns anybody may have? All right, I don't see anything. So I think we're in a good position to close the meeting. Again, Kayla, do you mind going to the last slide with my? So
Don't
so
have
we
your email address on it?
it's supposed to, but I think it's missing.
We'll go
There
to-
is, if you Google improvements to Paula Titus Park, the project page will pop up as one of the first items on Google. The meeting presentation and recording will be posted on the project page. Kayla's team will put together meeting notes and that will be posted as well. And then any updates and notifications of the next meeting will be put on there. From this point, Kayla and her team are going to continue to flush out the design with the input we got tonight. And in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we'll plan on coming back to you guys with a preferred plan that incorporates. Great, I see in the chat the link is posted there. So we'll come back to you guys with that preferred plan that incorporates a lot of the feedback, make sure that we're on the same page, and then Kayla and her team will continue to develop that in construction documents. My contact is up on the page right now. So if for whatever reason you didn't feel comfortable making a comment tonight or sharing your input, you certainly can feel free to call or email me with any of that input and I'll make sure it's included in the meeting notes. So with that being said, unless there's any last things, I'm going to close the meeting. Great.
Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
everybody.
Thank
Great to
you.
see everybody.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you,
for coming.
everybody, for attending. I was really happy that both the condos on both sides were represented tonight. That's excellent. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the Titus family.
Yeah, there we go.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. That went well.
Good job, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Liz. I said that went well, but oh, it's still recording. Will you get to cut it off or no? Is that it?